This is a guy we were trying to connect up with yesterday, but he was busy. We were busy. Didn't happen, but we've got him today to kick us off. And that's somebody from my neck of the woods. I actually don't know where he is, but I know he lives a few blocks from me here in Tacoma Park, the People's Republic of Tacoma Park, bluer than blue. Damon Silvers. He's Director of Policy and Special Counsel and whatever else Rich Trumpka needs help around the House of Labor. Our very own Damon Silvers. Damon, good to see you, brother.
Hey, brother Chris, how are you doing?
You know, better and better. I was a little grumpy when I woke up this morning, but I speak some truth to me here. How are things looking from your angle?
Well, I think it's our view that we've given Donald Trump the pink slip, that it is over. It is all over, but the shouting. There's going to be a lot of shouting.
There's going to be a lot of shouting
and tweeting and various other things, and a lot of lawyers are going to run around, but it's over. That is the view of the AFL-CIO, and it is over in large part because of what working people did and what organized working people did in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in Arizona, and Nevada. I think there's a reality here, which is that a lot of people feeling a little heavy today in various ways. And I think it's real important. And I bring this message from President Trump, the president of the AFL-CIO. It's just like real important to remember here. If I told you 18 months ago that on this day, right, November 4th, 2020, right, we would have defeated Donald Trump, how would you feel?
Words cannot express, my brother. Words cannot express. We had some bottles ready to crack last night. Jeremy, did you ever get in that bourbon?
I had other stuff.
Other stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't ready to celebrate last night, so I had to crack into the other stuff.
Okay, all right. So yeah, no, we would. But let's just back up here a sec, Damon. I mean, last night, and you were there 4 years ago at the AFL when things went sideways. I mean, it was. I think a lot of us really, we didn't want to see a replay of 16. But, the number, and I think, I know I was having this sense of deja vu all over again, right? I mean, we were feeling pretty comfortable. We talked to Charlie down in Georgia. We were talking to folks in Michigan. I mean, we were feeling, pretty cautiously optimistic.
And for good reason. We won Michigan and we may yet win Georgia. I mean, I think we need to kind of, look, I think, yes, we have to recognize that we all read polls that in various ways created expectations that did not come to pass for last night. But we need to look past that, right? It's like the polls are the poll. There's an old saying that there's talk about money and there's actual money, right? The polls are the talk about an election. This is the actual election, and we have won.
It's pretty amazing. It is pretty, like you say, it's probably going to be full employment for some lawyers for a bit while we hash this stuff out.
Yeah. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I want to. First of all, I think we have Deanna Forrester from the Metro Council, if I'm not mistaken, and I want to make sure that we get her introduced and get her live. Deanna, are you there?
I'm here.
So glad to have you. Let's get. You were just downtown at the demonstration in McPherson Square. So before we open it up to my colleagues for questions and comments, tell us about how that went. This was a defend the vote rally, yeah?
Yeah. The call was to make sure that every vote is counted. Yeah, I'm exhausted. I'm sure like everyone.
Join the crowd.
Yes, exactly. And it was good. I'm glad because after driving around to a couple of polls yesterday, probably set up and listened to the results coming in. So it felt good to be around like-minded people, our colleagues, our comrades in the front line, 32BJ Unite Here, a lot of local local ANC commissioners from DC were there. So I think that a lot of people just felt like they wanted to come together, especially we all been isolated for so long. And the definitely a different feeling than other events have been, or even some of the stuff that's been portrayed, you know, as far as the protest and the disruption, no disruption, very peaceful. Everyone calling to make sure that, especially with Trump announcing last night that he won in his own mind, that every vote on it. So it was really good. That when I left from down there, they were getting ready to march, but they put up Biden's speech on the big screen. So it was good.
Yeah, in fact, before we go on, Evan, I think you want to share the latest map that we have, because it's almost changing by the minute. So let's see where we actually are at the moment. 264. This is Politica. Okay, so Biden's at 264, Trump's at 214.
So
There's
we're looking at Nevada right now. Biden's up by 8,000 votes. Going to Pennsylvania, we have Trump up by 300,000. 86% of the expected vote is in. North Carolina, here, let me get that down there. North Carolina is, Biden's only very close, less than 100,000 votes with 94% in. And then Georgia's a very interesting one as well. It's just about 100,000 votes. And I pulled this article up from the Wall Street on Parade that talks a little bit about Judge Sullivan's directive at U.S. Postal Service and DeJoy to count the ballots. And they actually go through this percentage right here that is looking at the number of ballots that the post office is still holding on to. So you can see that in central Pennsylvania, 70% have been delivered, which means that 30% were not delivered. Almost 20% were not delivered in Philadelphia, 23% in Detroit, 46% in Colorado and Wyoming. Mail-in ballots are still with the post office. You got 39% in Atlanta, 20% in Houston, 31% in Alabama. I mean, what type of effect would that have with the Senate race down there? In the New England area, it's nearly 30% for Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire. And in South Carolina, even 21%. Would that have had any effect with the Harrison race? Probably not. And then South Florida as well, 25% and 20% in Wisconsin. So
let me go back to Damon for just sort of some comment on that, and then I want to talk about what's next for labor. I mean, there was a big concern, Damon, about folks mailing in, and clearly, I think we've been seeing that today, right? As those votes were being counted, and this seems like it was part of the GOP strategy, knowing that the mail-in was going to skew more democratically, and with Trump trying to claim victory at 2:00 in the morning. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, I mean, it's critical to understanding what's going on to understand that the mail-in ballots are overwhelmingly Biden ballots, and that the states count them in different orders, there pretty clearly was an effort by President Trump and by DeJoy, his Postmaster General, to mess with or at least the question whether how effectively they were messing with the post office is another question. Right. They certainly wanted us to believe that. I think we're going to see a lot of numbers and this kind of thing being thrown around. I think we have to let the dust settle on that. I can tell you right now, and I'm a little puzzled by the math associated with that map, because that map just showed if you count Nevada, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, and the 3 votes in Maine and the 1 vote in Nebraska, right? That is 270. That is right. That is victory.
That map wasn't showing Nevada.
Right. I couldn't see from the way you guys put it up there. And we are, the reason why I said so convinced, so straightforwardly before, we believe we have won this election is because we believe that those states are in the bag, that is solid. And we also believe that we are going to win Pennsylvania. And I think the number I hadn't seen the Pennsylvania number. If we're at 86% and the gap is 300,000 votes, we're going to win. And that assumes that there actually aren't like hundreds of thousands of ballots somewhere in the post office. Remember, in Pennsylvania, because of this Pennsylvania Supreme Court order, ballots can be validly delivered until Friday. So that if there are, and there's a federal judge chasing them, if there are a lot of undelivered ballots actually in the Postal Service and not simply ballots that were not mailed in the end, but people actually went and voted in person instead, or they dropped them off or whatever, there actually are large numbers of ballots in the postal system. I think those ballots are going to get squeezed out by Friday, at least in Pennsylvania. And what happens elsewhere, I think, well, we'll see. We'll see what kind of facts emerge. There are lots of federal judges and state attorney generals overseeing the post office, and I think we'll see. We'll see how that unfolds. I think it's just really important to understand here right now, today as we speak, right? That although let's put it this way, it would have been nicer to have won a huge and resounding victory by double digits. That we have won, and we didn't win just by accident. We won because of a huge effort by the labor movement in the critical places, not just to talk about the issues and understand why Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were the right people for working people, but to turn out the vote and to protect the vote. We were the labor movement was out in force protecting the vote today, protecting the count in Detroit, in Pittsburgh, in Philadelphia, turning situations where people were trying to provoke stuff into calm, lawful democratic processes. And it really shows that there's no question that Donald Trump was engaged in, and people around him even more so, were engaged in a concerted attack on our democracy. And that attack was defeated today.
Thank
and
you.
we should all remember that.
No, I think that's absolutely key, and I want to welcome. I'm so glad Elise could join us. We were supposed to connect up earlier for our own little personal therapy session. I was like, Elise, let's just do it right here. That's what the network is here for. So Elise Bryan, president of the Coalition of Labor Union Women. Sister Bryan, how you feeling today?
Better than when I went to bed last night. This morning at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Got that.
Yeah, guys, fellow siblings, so glad to see y'all. I'm ready to listen to what you all have to say, because I haven't watched the news. This being on the AFL-CIO call was the first time I've heard any report back on it. Mm-hmm. So I'm here to listen.
Yeah, and I think to Damon's point, and just to the bit that I've been able to pick up, I really think, I had people saying, downtowns all over the country are boarded up. They're preparing for civil war and, all of this kind of stuff. And that, did not happen. There was a lot of concern about, intimidation at the polls. And I didn't, and I would, love to hear, Damon, you probably have your ear close to the ground on that, but I didn't hear a whole lot of that going on. And so in the end, it looks to me, and this is maybe part of what Damon's talking about, like, the people did get to, by and large, despite a pretty organized effort, to speak their piece. Now, the fact that, we very clearly have two different countries in this country. You look at that map and there is definitely, a red America and a blue America. Now you go down to the local level, I think it gets to be a lot more complicated. And in fact, Virginia, I think is a good example of that, depending on where you are, even in that it kind of breaks out. Good. Mark Grunberg from PAI Labor News has joined us. And I know, Mark, you've had your ear close to the ground. Do you have some labor news for us to report?
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Chris. Sorry I'm a little late. I was out at McPherson Square with the Protect Our Votes people, of which there was a very good crowd, by the way. I would guess several hundred, say about 200 or so. Everybody is socially distancing and wearing masks. And there was a lot of enthusiasm. Unfortunately, the two two of the three union leaders who were scheduled to show couldn't. John Costa of the ATU and what's her first name? Davis of the Washington Teachers Union couldn't make it.
Uh-huh.
Liz Davis. But the SEIU 32BJ did, as did other progressive groups, 51 for 51, United We Dream, so on and so forth. They were all out there, again, emphasizing protect the vote, protect the vote, protect the vote. Nobody, and that's what DC is doing. Now we switch to the national, which is why I spent much of today on before going to that. There have been demonstrations all over the country, similar protect the vote, but in Chicago, my old hometown, thank you, 8 unions got together for a demonstration that, let's see, it's 5:30 our time, so it's going to start in half an hour their time, in the Loop. Same theme, but these 8, led by the Chicago Teachers Union, which is known for its activism and militancy, have said that if Trump tries to basically steal the election, they are going to demand a general strike. And they aren't the first. The difference is it's a block of 8 this time.
So let me go over to Damon, because I know there's been a lot of meetings and you sort of alluded to this, but I want to get into a little bit more. And also any of the rest of the crew here, can jump in. This is a free for all. We're all sort of venting, finding out information, and having a therapeutic session. So I don't need to monopolize, but Damon, I want to get a sense of. I know there's a lot of lawyers on the Trump side. He's been talking about it for days, and frankly, a lot of us have PTSD from 4 years ago, or what shit. I still have it from when Gore sort of was very peaceful and let the process play out, and we saw how that worked out. Who is it? Not only from the Democratic side, but where is labor in this mix? What's our plan?
Well, we have a comprehensive plan for dealing with threats to the election, organized before the election in concert with community allies in the key battleground states, relying on the labor movement's regional and state structures. And we have legal coordinators set up, and we have a press structure, communication structure, and a mobilization structure. And we were very, you could see, we were very effective putting that structure into use today in Michigan when there were people who were trying to disrupt the lawful counting of ballots in Detroit. I'm pretty sure that structure will work if we have to mobilize in response to any threat to the vote. And Rich Trumka, the president of the AFL-CIO, has made really clear on many occasions that it is not by lawyers or judges or reporters or publishers, not even by podcasters, that our democracy is maintained, but it is simply by the determination of working people to defend it. And no one should be under any illusion or confusion about how it stands right now today in America, which is that working people and their unions are prepared to defend democracy, whatever that means and whatever that takes. But really, that's all we have to say, because we're also going to be proportionate, meaning that we are not going to be the first people. We are not going to be the first people to step outside of the lines of democratic conduct, civility, and law. We're not going to be that. And we saw that already today. We saw the Trump people trying to disrupt our democracy, right? And it was working people who said, no, let the votes be counted, leave those people alone, sit down, be quiet, act like a normal person. And our people can be quite persuasive in that way.
Hey, Patrick, you've got a question?
Thank you. This is Patrick Dixon. Damon, from what I understand, then the case you're making is that Trump can have all the lawyers he likes. He can have Ty Cobb, he can have Alan Dershowitz, he can have as many lawyers as he likes, but he doesn't have a case. just a brief second question. Supposing this is the beginning of the end, as you're suggesting, do we need to worry about the next 2 months?
Good question.
A lame duck, unhinged.
An unhinged lame duck. I like it.
I can help answer that.
I think you should always be afraid of unhinged lame ducks. It just sounds really scary. It's something. I'm tempted to use a hunting metaphor. I won't. No. Look, a couple things here. Look, I was a senior lawyer on the ground in Florida in 2000. And we learned a couple things from that experience. One of them is that these types of these situations are fundamentally political. They're not legal. They're fundamentally won by the side that has the popular support, that gets its message across, and that fights one day longer, as we say in a strike, one day longer, and 1 ounce of will harder. I think we've got that today. I don't think Donald Trump and his people have that. So secondly, in Florida in 2000, the margin was 500 votes, and when the whole presidency hangs on 500 votes, then all kinds of craziness and legal arguments and so forth appear to be significant. But that is not the situation we have here. We've won solid but solid victories in multiple key states, and I think we're likely to win at least one more. I think Pennsylvania is likely to end up in Biden's column, and it's very hard to undo those things in recounts and the like, particularly when the Democrats have won, because it typically in recounts that it turns out that it's Democratic voters who've been disenfranchised in the initial count and who get brought back in. So I'm not, as you said about lawyers, I don't think that Trump and his lawyers have a case. And every case they've brought in the last 48 hours trying to affect the conduct of the election has been thrown out of court, including by some very conservative judges who basically were embarrassed to have to be asked to do stuff like that. The issue of do we have something to worry about? Listen, until Joe Biden raises his right hand on the steps of the Capitol in January, we have something to worry about. We're dealing with a desperate and lawless man in Donald Trump, and a group of people who really around him who really are at odds with our traditions of our democratic republic. And as long as you have people like that in power, you have to, be ready for anything. And we are ready for anything. I would also say that we have another problem, which is that our country's in a lot of trouble. The virus is raging. Our economy is vulnerable, and we have to be concerned that we're going to have a president who is essentially ignoring all of that, abdicating his responsibilities as he has all along here to protect and defend the American people. You ask, is there reason to be worried? That there's reason to be worried about that, right? There's reason to be worried about, they say about a lame duck that the United States has one president at a time, right? Not two, right? That the president-elect is not the president until he's or she is sworn in, and it's very important to maintain that distinction. Well, that's usually true, but we are threatened in this situation with the prospect of 0 presidents at a time, and that is reason for concern. Not that I think we're going to see Joe Biden attempt to try to fill that vacuum. It's improper, but we need to be concerned about the possibility of a President Trump who, even more than in the last 4 years, really sort of abdicates his responsibilities during this period.
Well, Damon, I mean, you can never tell with this guy when he's serious and when he's joking, but he talked about leaving the country, I think going to his golf course in Scotland. So, I mean, you could be talking about literally an absentee president, leaving the country. How much more time do you have to spend with us? Because there's one more thing I want to ask you before you do go.
Yeah, it's fine. Just go ahead.
Okay, good. I want to talk to you about Scott Reynolds in just a minminute, but I think that
Oh yeah.
I know, but I think other folks may have things that they want to jump in. Mark, you had a follow up, I think.
Yeah, can you hear me, Chris?
I can tilt your camera down though, so we can see a little bit less,
There's
more of
just
you and less
there's
of the
just a
ceiling.
blank on this. There's just a blank on the screen. Sorry about that. I was looking something up. To answer the previous question, yes, we've got to worry between now and then. Two two of the non-election stories in this week's edition are going to be two Trump rules that were announced just within the last couple of days. He's given people only 30 days to comment on them. One would basically expand the employer independent contractor dodge, and the other, AFT and other unions are trying to revive the permanent rule against all airborne viruses, not just the coronavirus. And of course, Trump is trying to. They've had to go to court to try to do that because OSHA is sitting
Well,
on it and it's sat on it for 4
I want to
years.
go back to Damon on this, and we can discuss this as well. I mean, Damon, what I've been wondering is that, you know, a lot of the stuff that Trump did was, I mean, I think he's issued more executive orders than I mean, this is one place where I think he's probably right. I mean, I think I read somewhere he's done more executive orders than all the rest of the presidents combined. Certainly, it's been a lot. But I was thinking that maybe an upside of that, I mean, aren't those easily reversed or undone as opposed to legislation? Tell me if I'm wrong on that.
As a general, I mean, that it can be complicated, but as a general matter, yes, it's easy to revoke an executive order. You know, it doesn't require an act of Congress. There
Right.
can be, you have to go through, you know, there's been a lot of litigation, for example, around DACA, right, which was an executive order. And Trump's attempt to undo it, and the fact that there was no foundation to that.
Mhm.
They can undoing one can be challenged, but in general, it's seen as part of the normal powers of the presidency. And so, but I think, look, I think that we're going to have challenges here because of the uncertain state in the Senate, and
Right.
so
Yeah.
right, and so I think. I think that's going to create some challenges around dealing with Trump's destructive legacy. But I believe that the Vice President Biden and Senator Harris are up to those challenges. I think we'll see a dramatically better governance of our country pretty rapidly.
Damon, before you leave, tell everybody the difference between an executive order and a federal regulation, because a federal regulation is very hard to get off the books once it's there. And that's what we
Okay.
were just
So,
talking about.
so in general, I mean, I didn't bring my administrative law handbook to this thing, but okay.
Damon. We
You know, I left it in my other jacket pocket. So an administrative rule, which it requires a process of notice and public comment, and it has to be tied to the statute from under which it's issued. An executive order, and once in place, to get rid of it, you have to go through another process like that of notice and public comment, and the public comments have to be taken seriously. And there are other issues. Many statutes require cost-benefit analysis. It's a relatively complex and formal process. The president has the authority to issue executive orders governing the management of the government. Those orders do not require public notice and comment. They are effective. They are essentially effective as issued, and can be withdrawn. Now, what you can't do with an executive order is, you know, racially discriminate, for example, or discriminate based on religion. That was the issue with the repeal of DACA. And you can't do things. You can't say you're going to do things for one reason, and the reasons that you state have no merit, are lies, right? You know that, and this is the kind of thing that Trump got into.
Right. Exactly. I think, is Elise still here? Because I think I wanted to get some reaction from Elise. There's a question here, which I want to pose to both of you, which is, you know, what are the next steps in the protecting the vote campaign? And I'm wondering, Elise, we've been talking with you about the activism, and with the Coalition of Labor Union Women. I'd just like to get your thoughts about next steps.
I think that, and actually, in the D. Taylor, Unite Here president, in the EC meeting said, we as the labor movement need not be reactive. We need to be in action on this. We need to be initiating, not waiting to react to something. I know that there were no major disruptions by Trump forces. And I do know that some people were harassed. One of our members, one of the coup vice presidents, was harassed by the management of an apartment complex where she was leafleting. I mean, it was next to the polling place there. Anyways, long story. But and that they've been getting more reports in like that, but it's nothing major, skirmishes as opposed to big, larger attacks is what we thought. But I think that yes, we need to be thinking and planning something major in all those cities, in Detroit, in Chicago, wherever they're going to try to force, use force to their influence. But the other piece of this, and so I think that and I'm not in that place to make those kind of plans, but I think that, yeah, it needs to be happening now. But the other piece of it that I was thinking about was the whole piece about patriotism. And my first, action on college campus was against the Vietnam War. And the whole idea of patriotism, waving the flag and all this kind of stuff was not something I embraced. Plus, I grew up in the African-American community. And our neighborhood in Detroit used to be predominantly immigrants from Italy and Poland and Hungary, right? When we moved in, we were like the second Black family. Every holiday, they would have flags out. As they moved away, flags disappeared. And it occurred to me, like, why don't we wave flags? And it was because as African Americans, as my mother said, I won't stand up for a country that won't stand up for me. So I never felt a need to wrap myself in the flag, but I can see where strategically we need to be thinking about not allowing them to hold exclusively what patriotism means. If you want to call it matriotism, I don't care. But I think that that's part of the psychological game and the image piece that's being played out. And I think that, in terms of what they sent in terms of messages, I didn't see it in it, but I heard that they had commercials directed at African-American male voters, played during sports events.
Yep.
Right? And I'm like, ooh, really? What do we got? We're phone banking our freaking heads off. But as I learned from some other meeting with some brothers who are in filmmaking, we're talking that the magic of film is in the editing. But it's not just putting a picture out there, it's how you put that picture together. Right. And what kind of pictures are we putting together for our folks who are not reading as much? Somebody said to me, I was gonna throw something in the garbage, and I said, don't worry about it, nobody reads. Right, and I was like, well, okay. But people do. This visual media is real and it's happening right now. So I'm just thinking, like, where are we on that piece as well?
I think that's a question to you, Damon, because you are, at a position where, those decisions and those plans are being made. And I guess one of the things that's come up in our coverage is, this issue that well in the labor movement, which is, every 4 years or every 2 years, and we mobilize really well around elections, but then we tend to demobilize pretty darn quickly, after elections. And that's something that folks have been sort of wondering is, are there plans to sort of try and take some of that energy? What are your thoughts?
Well, what we've been saying at the AFL-CIO is that our job through these last few weeks and going forward is to win. And I think while we didn't win everything, we won the things we needed to win. Was to win, just to defend, and that's what we're talking about right now, is the defense of our democracy, the defense of our victory, and then to mobilize, and to mobilize on behalf of our agenda. It will not be enough to elect people. We have to mobilize to ensure that they do what they said they were going to do, and to prevent people like Mitch McConnell, who's not going away, from blocking us. And so I think the answer is yes, we have to mobilize. We have to mobilize to pass the HEROES Act immediately, because the needs, the suffering that is involved here in the COVID has not gone away. And we have to mobilize to get the real agenda of building back better, as Vice President Biden says, with labor law reform, with the right to organize. We have to have that. We have to mobilize for that agenda. So the idea of like now we're done, we'll all go back to brunch, as somebody said. That for working people, that is not an option. We're not going back to brunch. And I would also say that immediately in defend agenda, the AFL-CIO is urging unions around the country, the labor movement around the country, to take part in whatever's going on in people's communities around counting every vote. Whatever kinds of actions are being done by allies and trusted people who aren't gonna create provocations. We do not want provocations right now. But the labor movement needs to be out there sending that message. Two messages. First message is count every vote. Second message is we know that if every vote is counted, that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have won.
All right, before we let Damon go, any questions? Jeremy, Evan, Gene, yeah, Evan, go ahead.
So Damon and Elise as well, and Mark, we need more than just regulation change. I think we need a jobs program, and I think we need infrastructure spending. And I'm just hoping that organized labor is really going to push Biden, to push the banks, to push the Federal Reserve, and to actually create a jobs program that we haven't seen since the 1930s, from whether it's a WPA program, a CCC, and a Works Progress Administration with a Reconstruction Finance Corporation. I mean, we have the blueprint. I hope we move that direction. That's just a comment. And I hope that, hope you're looking at that as well.
Well, let me just say that's what I was just talking about a moment or so ago. When I talked about the agenda we need to move and building back better. I will say though that there's an awful lot of that it's important that the Federal Reserve and the bank regulators and the banking system play a constructive role here. But if we want real public investment, we need real public investment. And without that, we're not going to get what we need here. And that means investing the public's money in the public's infrastructure. And when you talk about the CCC and so forth, that's what those things are. That's what those things were. Now, I think we're going to be challenged here a little bit, particularly if we don't get to 50-50 in the Senate. That we're going to have to be creative and we're going to have to be aggressive in terms of getting to 51 votes in the Senate for what we need to get done. But I think in this space, there's actually some possibility for some bipartisan work, and this is the top priority of the labor movement.
Jeremy, Gene, or Alan?
Yeah, can I add something to what Damon was just saying?
Sure.
There's a big push on, and they may try to get it in during the lame duck to finally set up, after 12 years of talking about this, a national infrastructure bank to basically jumpstart the whole infrastructure program with federal funds that would leverage private money for everything from the tunnel under the Hudson to rebuilding the Woodrow Wilson Bridge to broadband to you name it. We'll see where it goes, and Biden has also made a big deal about this, especially in Ohio and Pennsylvania. But it's not just Ohio and Pennsylvania. I can think of any place needs infrastructure. Going back to my old hometown of Chicago, we had an L tunnel collapse a couple of years ago. Luckily, there weren't any trains in it, and nobody got hurt. But still, to have a tunnel collapse, hello.
Thanks, Mark. Damon, before you go and before we wrap this hour, I just wanted to, I guess, a point of personal privilege, and I think Lisa will probably want to weigh in this as well. But on the 2nd, we lost a real brother in the labor movement, Scott Reynolds, and I know you had a very nice piece on his Facebook page, and I just wanted to. I didn't realize that you had gone back that far with Scott, and I just love for you to share some of your memories of Scott, longtime colleague at the AFL-CIO, and at least I know you knew Scott well too.
Well, I'll just say, Chris, Scott Reynolds worked as a mobilizer, an organizer for the AFL-CIO from the. I don't know exactly when he came to the headquarters. He was working in the field.
I think he was just there, you know, just
Yeah. Well, he was working in the field. He was working in the field in Richmond, Virginia, for the state Fed, for the Virginia State AFL-CIO in 1980, in the summer of 1984. And you know, Scott died relatively young, you know, in his late 50s. And I realized when I heard that he had only been maybe 22 or 23 when I met him, and he must have been just out of college. And I thought, of course, I thought of him as a very experienced guy because I was 19. He was working for the AFL-CIO youth group at the time, Frontlash. And you know, being a Southern trade unionist, particularly in 1984, I mean, that's not easy. And Scott was the guy who like carried labor's message in the halls of the Virginia State House as like a kid in front of these incredibly ugly kind of Dixiecrat characters who ran Virginia in the 80s. So I met him then when I was doing voter registration with some SNCC veterans who had organized themselves. Francis Fox Piven and Holbert James and some other people had organized themselves into this group and gotten some foundation money to do voter registration with people who, you know, through social service organizations. And so that's what I was doing in Richmond. I had no idea what I was doing. And Scott Reynolds took me in hand and was my friend and guide at that time. I'll never forget it. And he kind of showed me like what it was like to be in the labor movement, which seemed pretty cool. I liked that. And then I met Scott again when I came to the AFL-CIO, and I mean, not coincidentally, right? Scott was an influence on why I got there. And there was, I came to the AFL-CIO in 1997. There was Scott, you know, he just fought and fought and fought, and you never even realized he was fighting. He helped save Social Security from George Bush. He was there at the Battle of Seattle against the WTO in 1999. He was a key guy getting the passage of the Affordable Care Act. He fought the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He you know, innumerable elections at every level. I mean, he helped get past Dodd-Frank financial reform in the field. He did the field mobilization for that. He was a universal organizer, and he was a lovely man. He was kind to everybody. You understated and funny as hell.
He's also very fierce. That's the thing that was great about Scott, was he was very kind, really great sense of humor, but he was fierce as anything. I mean,
yeah, you know, Scott was a prince of a man, and he served working people his entire life. He gave everything he had, everything. I was so sad when he died. He died on Monday, and he died with great dignity. He called the people that he cared the most about to say goodbye. You know, really, just the best of us.
Thanks, Damon. Elise, I know he was a brother in the guild.
And I gotta be off.
Thank you, Damon. Appreciate it.
See you, Damon.
Elise, it's so great to be on the same camera, on the same Zoom with you, Elise.
Are we on
Take
the same
care,
continent? Are we on the same continent?
Yes. Oh, yes. I'm probably not more than like a few hundred yards from you. I'm at like where am I? 13th and Missouri.
Oh yeah. All right.
Thanks, Damon.
Bye-bye.
Take care.